Hi, my name is Avery, and I'm 29 years old. I live in a house that was never mine, even though it was supposed to be. From the outside, the place looks like something out of a lifestyle magazine. A large colonial-style home nestled on a quiet street in Westbridge, with perfectly trimmed hedges, two garden gnomes, and a porch swing no one really sits on. But inside, it feels like a museum of silence, except when they're celebrating my younger sister, Tessa. Tessa is 25. Blonde, loud, and magnetic in that social media influencer way. The kind who always has a phone in one hand and a smile ready for an audience. Mom and Dad, Sharon and Martin, dote on her like she's the centerpiece of their lives. Every small success of hers is met with toasts, gifts, even catered dinners. When she hit 100,000 followers, they threw her a garden party. When she landed a sponsored deal, they acted like she got into Harvard. And me? I'm the shadow in the hallway. The quiet one. The daughter who takes her plate to the sink and is told nothing, asked nothing, thanked for nothing. I wasn't always invisible. Grandpa Thomas used to say I had a calm fire in me. He'd hand me old leather-bound journals and tell me, "You listen like a writer. One day, that'll matter more than noise." He passed away 2 years ago. After that, the house became colder. Not physically, just emptier in the places that used to feel safe. They say he left everything to Tessa. They say I wasn't even mentioned. Sometimes Mom will look right at me while cutting vegetables and say things like, "If you had direction in life, maybe your grandfather would have trusted you with something." Or worse, Tessa will snort from across the table and say, "She's just mad Grandpa knew who the real winner was." But something never felt right. Grandpa always told me, "You don't need a stage to have value." And he used to take me aside, slipping me quiet notes with quotes about strength and legacy. He never made me feel less, only they did. Tonight was another dinner celebration for Tessa's new podcast launch. I wasn't invited, even though I helped her brainstorm the name 2 weeks ago. I watched from the hallway as balloons went up, cameras flashed, and laughter spilled from the dining room like perfume I wasn't allowed to wear. I sat on the edge of the stairs, picking at a chipped piece of paint on the banister, wondering how long I'd keep doing this, living like a guest in my own life. I didn't know it then, but the truth was about to find me. And when it did, it wouldn't just shake the house, it would burn the foundation they built on lies. The next morning, I came downstairs to a kitchen full of leftovers and half-drained champagne bottles. Gold confetti was stuck to the edge of the countertop, and there were crumbs in the creases of the dining chairs. No one had thought to clean up after Tessa's big night. Why would they? That's what I was for. Mom breezed in wearing one of her silk robes and acted surprised to see me there.
"Oh,
"I didn't know you were still here," she said, not realizing or not caring that I lived here too. Tessa had such a lovely night. It meant a lot to her. I nodded. That was our pattern. I stayed quiet. They pretended I wasn't bruised by their silence. Dad walked in a few minutes later, reading something on his phone. He didn't even look up before saying, "Don't forget to stay out of the dining room. We're taking photos with Tessa later. Professional ones. We want everything tidy." I was the clutter, apparently. Tessa floated down the stairs like a movie star. She wore a bright yellow sundress and a pair of heels that clicked confidently against the tile. Her voice, as always, announced her before her presence did. "Hey guys, did you see the engagement on last night's reel? Crazy, right? Grandpa would have been so proud."
Grandpa."
The mention of him made my heart jump because it didn't fit. Tessa rarely talked about him unless it was performative. I remember her rolling her eyes every time he'd invite us to his study for stories or long talks. She never had the patience. I did. I turned toward her, curious. "You think Grandpa would have liked your content?" She tilted her head, fake sweet. "Well, he left everything to me, didn't he? I must have done something right." Mom smirked. Dad didn't correct her. It wasn't the first time she'd said it, but this time, it hit differently. Because suddenly I remembered something. A box. A thick, sealed envelope Grandpa gave to Dad the day after the funeral. I had caught a glimpse of it before he tucked it away in the home office drawer. I didn't think much of it then. Grief does strange things to time. But now, something in my gut twisted. That envelope might not have been addressed to Dad. It might have been meant for me. And for the first time in years, I felt something sharper than hurt. I felt suspicion. Later that day, while everyone was out posing for Tessa's family portrait, I found myself standing in front of that office drawer, staring at the handle. I hadn't opened it yet, but soon I would. The drawer didn't open easily. It stuck halfway, like it hadn't been used in a while. For a second I hesitated, not because I felt guilty, but because I knew that whatever I found inside might change everything. I eased it open and found what I remembered: a bundle of neatly filed folders, a box of unused pens, and a thick, sealed envelope with my grandfather's initials embossed on the front. The paper was aged slightly around the edges. The seal had been broken. They had opened it. I didn't touch anything, not yet. I didn't want them to catch me, and I had no idea how I'd explain it if they did. My hands shook as I closed the drawer again. My gut had been right. That night, when I knew the house would be quiet, Tessa on a live stream, Mom in her bath, Dad watching sports, I texted Vanessa. Me. You remember Grandpa's will? I think they've been hiding something. She replied almost instantly. Vanessa. What? Are you serious? Me. I saw the envelope. It was opened, but I couldn't get a clear look. It had his initials. There was a pause. Then 3 dots. Then the message that shifted the ground beneath me. Vanessa. Avery, you're not going to believe this. I saw that will. My fingers froze above the screen. Me. When? Vanessa. The day I came over last month. They left me in the kitchen while setting up Tessa's video shoot. I noticed the will on the counter. I took pictures. I thought it was weird but didn't say anything. Do you want me to send them? Me. Yes. Please. The photos came in minutes later. High quality, full pages. My heart thudded in my chest as I zoomed in. There it was, my name. Full name. Every asset listed, including the house. Bank account balances. Property estimates. The total value at the bottom. $3 million. And in bold, legally phrased text. All assets, including but not limited to property, investments, savings, and residuary estate shall be transferred in full to my granddaughter, Avery Shipley.
Signed.
Dated. Witnessed. I stared at it, stunned. They lied. For years. They let me live like a shadow under the roof that was mine. They mocked me, ignored me, humiliated me, knowing the truth. Grandpa had trusted me. He'd chosen me,
Not them.
I whispered aloud in the dark, the words unfamiliar and heavy. It's mine. All of it is mine. And for the first time, I felt the weight of something I hadn't dared to carry before. Anger. The next morning, I waited until Tessa had finished filming one of her rise and grind vlogs and Mom was back from her morning walk. Dad was still in the study with his tablet. I walked into the living room, holding my phone in my hand. My thumb hovered over the screen. The photos of the will were open and ready. Tessa was pouring herself a glass of freshly squeezed juice. When she saw me, her smirk loaded before she even spoke. You look serious, she said, sipping. Not another emotional crisis, I hope. I didn't flinch. I turned to all 3 of them and said, calmly, I know everything. Mom paused by the sofa. Excuse me? I held up the screen. The will. Grandpa's will. The real one. The one you pretended didn't exist. I've seen it. Dad set down his tablet, his face paling slightly. Tessa narrowed her eyes. This is ridiculous, Mom muttered, folding her arms. No, it's not, I said. It's signed, dated, and names me as the sole heir. The house, the accounts, everything. $3 million. He trusted me, and you've been lying to me for 2 years. Tessa laughed sharply, almost too loudly. Oh, please. You probably faked that. Grandpa knew I was the one who'd make something of it. He chose me, I said quietly. And you knew it. There was a split second of silence. Then Mom snapped. Get out, she hissed. You want to accuse us? You want to start a war in this house? Then pack your things and leave.
Now.
I'm not leaving, I said. Not until I take what's mine. She stepped forward, eyes blazing. You're lucky we ever let you stay here to begin with. Dad's voice was low but cold. You've always been a problem. Don't make this uglier than it has to be. I turned without another word and walked to my room. My breath was shaky, but I moved with purpose. I pulled out my old duffel bag and began packing clothes, my worn notebook, my charger. The photos of the will were still glowing on my phone, like proof of my worth burning in my palm. I was zipping the bag shut when they burst in. I told you to leave, Mom said, her voice rising. But you don't take anything. Nothing in this house belongs to you. This is mine, I said, holding the bag close. These are my things. She lunged forward, grabbing at the strap. You don't get to walk away with anything. Dad stepped in and without hesitation grabbed me by the hair, yanking my head back. Pain shot through my scalp. Let it go, he barked. Tessa stood in the doorway, watching with cruel amusement. Then she unscrewed the water bottle in her hand and threw it directly at me. The water hit my chest, dripping down my front. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I let go of the bag. Mom snatched it triumphantly. I stepped backward, soaked and shaking, but steady. I'll walk out with what's mine, I said quietly, pulling my phone from my pocket. And I'll take everything else back in court. Then I walked out the door with only a cracked phone and the $42 I had left in my jeans. But I didn't look back. I stood outside for a full minute before I could even breathe. The sunlight didn't feel warm. It felt distant, like it was shining on someone else. My clothes were damp, my scalp stung, and my hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the sudden quiet. For the first time in my life, the door had shut behind me, and no one was going to open it again. I walked aimlessly for a few blocks. My phone had 23% battery. No charger. No bag. No backup plan. I sat down on a low stone ledge near a mailbox and texted the only person I trusted in that moment. Me. They kicked me out. Vanessa replied almost immediately. Vanessa. What? Are you okay? Where are you? Me. Down the block. I couldn't even take my bag. Just my phone and a few bucks. Less than 10 minutes later, Vanessa pulled up in her small gray hatchback, her eyes wide and filled with panic. She parked and rushed toward me. Avery. I stood up, but I couldn't say anything. The words were caught in my throat. She wrapped her arms around me without another word. We sat in her car for a while, the air conditioning humming softly. I want to take you home with me, she said eventually, but my apartment's too tight. My cousin is already staying with us for her surgery recovery. And you know my mom, she panics when guests stay unexpectedly. I nodded. I understood. But that doesn't mean I'm leaving you alone, she added quickly. You're staying with someone. Who? She took a breath, then smiled faintly. Lucas. I blinked. Lucas? From college. Vanessa nodded. He still lives here. He's a lawyer now, remember? I told him about the will photos after I saw them. He was the first person I thought of when I realized what they did to you. I can't just show up at his door. You won't have to. I already texted him. He's expecting us. For the first time since I left the house, I felt something settle inside me. Not relief exactly, but hope's fragile outline. Vanessa reached for my hand. He'll help you. We both will. I looked down at my soaked shirt, my scratched screen, and the tiny crumpled bills still in my pocket. Okay, I whispered. And for the first time, I meant it. Lucas still lived in the same neighborhood we used to wander through after late study sessions in college, back when life was simpler, and our biggest concern was passing finals, not fighting for our names in court. Vanessa parked in front of a modest two-story townhouse with navy shutters and a concrete walkway lined with lavender bushes. She turned to me, her voice soft but steady. He's solid, Avery. Smart. Honest. And more than that, he remembers who you were before they tried to erase you. That last part stuck in my chest. She walked me to the door, knocked twice, and stepped back. Lucas opened it within seconds. He looked exactly the same. Slightly tousled brown hair, Sharp blue eyes, the same calm focus in his expression. But there was something different too. A kind of quiet strength, like someone who had learned how to fight without raising his voice. His eyes widened the moment he saw me. "Avery?" I nodded, lips tight. "Hi." Without asking a single question, he stepped aside and said, "Come in." His living room was simple but warm, bookshelves filled with case files and novels, a couch that looked more used than decorative, and a legal pad on the coffee table with scribbled notes in his unmistakable handwriting. Vanessa gave me a quick hug and whispered, "I'll be nearby. Call me when you're ready." Then she left us alone. Lucas handed me a towel. "You're still wet." I had a rough exit. He gave a tight smile, but his eyes scanned my face like he was searching for pieces of the girl he once knew. I sat on the couch, towel in hand, and unlocked my phone. "I want to show you something," I said, opening the folder of images Vanessa had taken of the will. He leaned forward, brow furrowed as he studied each photo. His fingers paused on the signature line. "This is real," he said quietly. "This isn't just a copy, it's a full set.
Dates.
Signatures. Beneficiary name, your name." I swallowed hard. They hid it. Kept it from me. Told me I was worth nothing. He looked up, his voice firmer. "They committed a crime. Multiple, actually. And they left marks on you when they kicked you out?" I nodded. Hair pulling. Bruising. My belongings were taken. He set the phone down and leaned back. "Well," he said, like it wasn't even a question, "then we fight." I stared at him, a little stunned by his certainty. "You're not doing this alone, Avery," he added. "We're going to get it all back, and make sure they answer for every lie." For the first time since Grandpa died, I didn't feel alone. Lucas didn't waste time. By the next morning, he had already printed and annotated the photos of the will. He sat at his dining table, laptop open, notes spread in tidy stacks. I stood nearby, still in borrowed clothes, still feeling like I was watching someone else's life unfold. He tapped the page with the signature. "This isn't just a photo. It's evidence of intent. And with Vanessa's eyewitness testimony, we can file a petition to validate this as the last known will of Thomas Shipley." I leaned forward. "But will the court accept photos?" Lucas looked up. "Probate courts in this state can accept scanned or photographed wills if there's credible witness support and a clear attempt to suppress the original." My chest tightened. "You really think they suppressed it?" He gave a small, bitter laugh. "They didn't just suppress it, Avery. They locked it away, let you live like a stray under your own roof, and physically assaulted you when you challenged their lie." He opened a new legal form on his laptop. "So here's what we'll do." Clipboard his plan. 1. File a probate petition based on the photographed will. 2. Issue a formal request to your parents demanding they present the original will. 3. Prepare Vanessa's affidavit as a material witness who saw the original in their home. 4. File a separate civil suit for inheritance obstruction and emotional harm. 5. Initiate a criminal complaint for physical assault and suppression of legal documents. It sounded overwhelming, but Lucas explained each step with the patience of a teacher. He printed the forms for my signature. "You're the legal heir, Avery. The court will see it." Later that day, Vanessa arrived to sign her witness affidavit. She brought coffee and that quiet kind of loyalty that says, "I will stay until the end." "I remember everything," she told Lucas as she signed. They left the will on the kitchen counter. I saw Avery's name and thought, this doesn't add up. So I took pictures. Her voice didn't waver. Neither did mine when I signed my petition. That night, after they both left, I sat alone on Lucas's couch staring at the printed page that bore my name. Petitioner, Avery Shipley. Claim, fraudulent suppression of last will and testament. Estate value, $3 million plus real property, residence. For years they told me I was invisible. Now my name was in black ink, stamped and filed. This time, they would see me. The probate hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning. I wore a simple navy blouse, borrowed from Vanessa, and sat at the front of the courtroom beside Lucas, hands folded tightly in my lap. My parents and Tessa were seated across the aisle, Tessa with her sunglasses still perched on her head like she thought this was a red carpet event. They avoided my gaze, but I didn't avoid theirs. The judge, a woman named Justice Caro, entered promptly. Her tone was no nonsense from the first gavel strike. Lucas stood and explained our claim with calm, measured precision. He presented the photographed will, the signature, the date, the clauses, all spelling my name. Then he submitted Vanessa's signed affidavit. Your Honor, he said, this will was knowingly withheld by the respondents for 2 years, during which time my client was misled, emotionally abused, and physically assaulted. We are requesting that this photographic copy be accepted based on witness testimony and the respondent's refusal to disclose the original. Sharon immediately stood, dramatic as ever. That's a lie. We never saw that version of the will. She forged it. Lucas didn't even flinch. Then perhaps you can explain why your kitchen counter was where it was last seen. Justice Caro raised an eyebrow. Did you ever find a will after Mr. Shipley's passing? Sharon hesitated.
So, did Martin.
Tessa rolled her eyes. We weren't sure it was official, Martin muttered. Did you show it to an attorney?
No.
Did you destroy it? I don't recall. Vanessa was called to the stand next. She stood with quiet composure and told the court exactly what she saw. The envelope, the name, the signature. She confirmed she had taken the photos on the same day. Tessa scoffed from her seat. She's just her friend. Of course she'd lie. But Vanessa didn't blink. I'm not the one who hid a legal document. After that, Lucas presented my medical report. The photos of bruises. The police report he'd helped me file after my hospital checkup. The judge's face darkened. So she was assaulted and thrown out of a home that legally belonged to her, she said, her voice crisp. Neither of them responded. I was the last to speak. Lucas gave me a quiet nod before I stepped to the front. I didn't want to come to court, I said. I just wanted the truth. But when truth is buried and erased, sometimes you have to fight for it. This was my home, my inheritance, my grandfather's last wish. And they tried to make me believe I was worth none of it. The courtroom was silent. Even Tessa stopped shifting in her seat. Justice Caro finally leaned forward. The court has seen enough. And I knew then, so had the world. It took less than 10 minutes. Justice Caro reviewed the final pages of the affidavit, flipped through the printed photos, and then looked directly at my parents and sister. In my courtroom, she said, intentional suppression of a legally binding will, especially for personal gain, is not only unethical, it is criminal. Sharon opened her mouth, but the judge didn't let her speak. Save it, she said firmly. You had a chance to present your version. What I saw today is a coordinated effort to defraud, isolate, and ultimately erase the rightful heir from both her inheritance and her dignity. Tessa slumped back in her chair. The judge continued. I hereby validate the submitted photographic copy of Thomas Shipley's will, based on its full content, witness confirmation, and the respondent's refusal to produce the original. Effective immediately, all assets belonging to Mr. Shipley's estate are to be restored to Avery Shipley, including the residence located at 217 Elmwood Lane, all liquid financial accounts, and remaining investment holdings. Estimated value, $3 million. My breath caught. I didn't cry, but my body felt like it was made of air and weight at the same time. The judge turned to Lucas. The civil and criminal filings will proceed separately. Then she looked at the 3 people I had once called family. For assault, willful obstruction of estate documentation, and fraudulent conduct, the court recommends the following sentencing, pending final criminal proceedings. Martin Shipley, 1 year of incarceration for physical assault and obstruction. Sharon Shipley, 8 months jail or probation for will suppression and emotional abuse. Tessa Shipley, 2 years for attempted will fraud and defamation. The room stayed frozen for a long moment. Sharon covered her face. Martin just stared blankly ahead. Tessa mumbled something under her breath that no one could hear. I looked at them all. Not with anger, just stillness. Because this wasn't vengeance. It was truth finally allowed to speak. Lucas placed a hand gently on my shoulder. It's done. But in my heart, I knew it wasn't just done. It was beginning. For the first time in years, the weight of my name didn't feel like a burden. It felt like mine. The courthouse hallways smelled like coffee and dust. Most people had already left. My parents were escorted out in silence. Tessa disappeared into a swirl of legal paperwork and social media silence. Vanessa stood near the exit, her arms crossed tightly across her chest, watching everything like she couldn't quite believe it had finally ended. I stood beside Lucas, not speaking, just breathing. Everything felt still. He looked over at me with that calm, unwavering expression I had come to trust more than I ever expected. How are you holding up? I gave a small breath.
Relieved. Shaken.
But mostly steady. He smiled. Good. Because steady is the beginning of peace. We stepped outside together, the sun stretching over the sidewalk like it had waited for this verdict. 2. Vanessa approached, hugging me tight. You did it, she said, her voice warm. You didn't just win in court, Avery. You proved you were never what they said you were. I swallowed. I only stood up because you gave me the truth. And Lucas gave me the tools. Vanessa smiled at him. She always needed someone who could see the fight in her. I saw it back in college, he said, looking at me. You just didn't see it in yourself yet. We walked back to Lucas's car, slow and quiet. Before I opened the door, he stopped me. There's something I've been meaning to say, he said, rubbing the back of his neck like he wasn't sure how to start. I didn't help you because of duty or pity. I helped you because I remembered the girl who used to challenge every assumption in our ethics class and stay behind to organize her notebooks when no one else cared. I saw someone who fought with silence and deserved more. I stared at him, my throat tight. And somewhere between building your case and watching you reclaim your voice, I realized I wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. I blinked. What were you fighting for? He pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. My breath caught. I know this is sudden, and maybe it's crazy, but I've never been more certain of anything. He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band. No glitter, no excess, just quiet elegance, like everything I had once believed wasn't enough. Will you start the rest of your life with me? He asked. There were no cameras, no family watching, just us. And I said the first completely unshaken word I'd spoken in years. Yes. 3 months later, I stood in the front doorway of the house I was once thrown out of, keys in my hand, title in my name, silence finally my own. The curtains had been replaced, the walls painted over. What once echoed with dismissal now held warmth in every corner. I didn't fill the space with noise. I let it breathe. Because I'd learned peace doesn't mean the absence of sound. It means no longer waiting to be heard. Vanessa visited often. She brought wine and stories and sat on the new kitchen stools like they were made for her. She never mentioned the trial unless I did. But every time she walked through the front door, she looked proud. Lucas and I planned a small backyard ceremony under the oak tree Grandpa planted when I was a child. The same tree that once shaded his bench, where he'd read to me and whisper, "You'll build what no one sees today." On our wedding day, Vanessa stood beside me as my maid of honor. She was the one who held my hand when I stepped into the aisle in a simple white dress I bought with my first earned inheritance deposit. When Lucas took my hand and said, "Today we rebuild," I knew he didn't mean the house. We meant a life. Later that summer, I set up a small scholarship fund in Grandpa Thomas's name for young women with no support, no voice, and no one telling them they mattered. I called it the Quiet Flame Fund. Letters began arriving. One from a girl named Brielle in Nebraska, another from someone in Georgia. They told me things I had once whispered in the dark to no one. You were the first person who made me believe I could. I kept those letters in a drawer beside Grandpa's last journal, Vanessa's printed affidavit, and a scanned copy of the will. Not out of revenge, but as a reminder. They tried to erase me, but I became permanent in ink. Now, when I sip coffee in the sunroom, I don't think about the lies. I think about the silence I've earned, the house that's mine, the partner who stood beside me, not in front, And I remember the words I spoke as I walked out of that house for the last time as their daughter. You'll see me again, not begging, reclaiming. And they did. If you found this story powerful and meaningful, don't forget to like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more emotionally gripping stories like this. Your support helps us bring more true-to-life stories that matter.